What's up, everybody? I'm going to make this video just to help people out. I'm working on a 2016 LML Duramax. And for those of you that know the LML, there's a couple things with them that are very serious risks. One of them being the CP4 pump. So that injector pump has a tendency to go bad. And the thing that doesn't help it with these Duramaxes is even from 2001 to 2016, they did not have a lift pump. So from the CP4 all the way back to the tank was all suction based. And yeah, it works as long as everything works perfect. But as soon as something goes wrong, if you have one leak in your fuel system, it no longer becomes a leak. It becomes a potential point for the truck to suck air, and then the truck could potentially shut off and not run. So a very serious risk if you're traveling, if you're somewhere out in the middle of nowhere, to have some kind of air suction thing going into that CP4, making the truck not run. So one of the things I did to this truck is I did put a FAS on it. I want to go through the reason I put the FAS on it though, and the symptoms that I was having with this truck. This truck came out of Louisiana. It's a nice unit. I'm working on cleaning it up, getting a few things taken care of on it, and then we'll see from there if I want to hold on to it. But beautiful unit. It's got that awesome bed on the back, built-in gooseneck, nice platform. And when I bought it, it started a little bit longer than normal on cranking time, but just a little bit. But when it ran awesome. So I didn't think anything of it. And then I'm driving it home, like 18 hours back home, and I shut it off at a fuel station at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I went to restart it, and it wouldn't start. So we didn't know what was going on. We tried priming the fuel filter, playing around with the bleeder screw. No luck with that. So then we ended up getting some ether, pulled the intake hose off and sprayed it with some ether, and the truck fired right up. And the rest of the way home, it ran excellent, no issues. One thing we did though is we put the scanner on it when we were trying it at the fuel station, and it was only getting like 1500 PSI of cranking pressure. So it was not building enough rail pressure to start. So we're like, okay, you know, maybe we got an injector pump going out, or maybe we're still sucking air somewhere, but we got it to run. We drove it the rest of the way home, never shut the truck off again. It was running beautiful. And then I shut it off in the driveway as soon as I got home. I went to restart it, and same thing, truck wouldn't start. So I was going through this for like a week and a half where truck would not start, run great on ether, like fire up on ether, and then it'd run beautiful, but it would not start without ether. And a lot of people say, hey, you know, don't use ether and whatnot. And you shouldn't make a habit of it, but some of those older diesels are a lot higher compression ratio than these ones are. So as long as you're doing a couple things properly, like making sure the glow plugs aren't working and the grid heater, I have had success with it without any issues whatsoever. But that's another topic. Anyhow, so we get home, no rail pressure, decide to start doing a couple things. The first thing we did is a whole new filter housing and fuel filter. Okay, thought maybe we're sucking air. Those tops of those fuel filter housings are prone to have issues. So we decided to eliminate that. We had no success. So then we start looking for fuel lines, like any type of leak or anything like that. Could not find anything. And this was a process. You know, it took a little bit to do this because I wasn't working on it every day. But same thing, wouldn't start. So then I decided, okay, well, maybe we'll just put a FAS on it. We put a FAS 165. And the reason we went with that one is because they say for higher horsepower applications, you should go a little bit more. And, you know, I just want to make sure that the truck has enough fuel going to it. And, you know, so we dropped the tank. We did the whole deal, put the FAS on it, had 12 PSI of pressure. And the way I was checking that is this valve right here is actually a vacuum gauge normally. But if you put the quick connector on there, get the fuel pressure gauge. If you do put a fuel pump on this thing, it will raise that pressure up and you can measure it right there. But the reason that you want to FAS, even if you don't have issues right now, is think of this. You're out there with your family, you have your fifth wheel camper behind you, and you're out in the middle of Utah or somewhere where there's nothing going on, there's no services. Do you want to have to worry about your truck sucking the tiniest bit of air and not having it start or having it to where it won't run right? I won't. I'm not going to take that chance. The chances of the truck going in limp mode or doing something crazy are already high enough with all this emission stuff nowadays. Do you want to take the chance by having just the tiniest bit of problem with your fuel line, not to include the potentials of your CP4? So for me, I'd rather have a fuel leak than have something where I'm sucking air and the truck won't start. But hey, you know, GM had 15 years to address that issue, and I evidently decided not to until, you know, a little bit after that. So don't quote me on the years, but I think it was like 01 to 16, no lift pump at all. And then L5Ps, they started. So we did all the whole deal. We dropped it, we put the FAS on it, tried to start the truck, no start. Same issue. We'll fire up on ether, truck will not run. So now I'm like, okay, crap. And we're checking the fuel pressures while we're cranking it, and it's like 900 PSI of cranking pressure. Checking the balance rates on the injectors, the balance rates were just fine. So we're like, okay, I don't know what's going on from here. Maybe it's a bad CP3. And I say CP3 because this truck actually has a CP3 conversion, which I didn't know that until I started digging into this thing a little bit more. It is actually a CP3 converted truck. So that's a really good thing. Like if you're going to have an LML, it's probably a good idea to do a CP3 conversion and eliminate that and put the FAS on there to eliminate any issues or potential risks to you and your family being stranded somewhere. Definitely a good idea to have that FAS. So I did a little consultation with another company. Is actually Supreme Diesel out of Jacksonville. I got to give them a shout out. Those guys have helped me out a few times, and we did a little phone consultation. And you know, we ended up getting a rail plug, like a fuel rail pressure or a fuel rail plug, and started plugging off each injector one at a time. And they actually recommended to do that. So their thought, and it makes sense now, is that the injector was building high pressure fuel, but then it was bleeding off through the return side and not affecting anything else. And you know, the truck ran great, but we did one injector that didn't change anything. And then I actually had a spare LML, so I took the injectors out of the LML. I took 2 of them out and I swapped them into this truck. The first injector I did was this number 2 up front, and I was just going off balance rates. Even though they were all within 3.5, I decided to go with number 2. And that brought the cranking pressure up on the truck from 900 to 2900, which is still not enough to start the truck. We still had to start it off ether, but it brought the cranking pressure up. So then I decide, okay, hey, balance rates, I'm just taking a guess on this one. You know, number 7 injector was like 3.2 or something, so we decided to change that one out. And before we changed it out, we just plugged the line. And here enough, we plugged the line, cranked the truck, and the truck fired right up instantly. And it is really, to me, like even now, mind-blowing. But the whole time, the problem with this truck was bad injectors. In this case, I think at least 1, maybe 2. No other symptoms other than truck wouldn't start. It was not building enough rail pressure to start. Once it started, it would build enough rail pressure most of the time, but not all the time. So if this ever happens to you, if you ever have a symptom like that, don't forget to rule out your fuel injectors, because even though you might not have any smoke issues, you might not have the haze at idle, you might not have any other symptoms besides the truck not starting, it's not to say that it's not that. Because in this case for me, that was the issue. It was not the fuel filter housing, it was not the FAS, it was not the pressure regulator, it was not the CP4. It was at least 1, maybe 2 fuel injectors bleeding the rail pressure off to the return line side and doing that. And one thing about these LMLs is, if I can climb up here real quick, hang on. Okay, on the LMLs, the injectors have to have back pressure to fire. So this line, I believe it's right here, yeah. This right here is the injector return line. Now this is actually a valve, and I believe it's like 55 PSI. It supplies 55 PSI of back pressure to the injectors to try to get them to fire. Something about the LMLs, they need back pressure on them. So some way, like a couple guys will test them out by either just blocking the line off with like a pair of forceps to supply enough back pressure to get the injectors to fire. And then sometimes other people will take the line off up there, and then they'll supply like 55 PSI of air pressure to it to see if the truck would start. And we tried it and still wouldn't do it. So definitely not that. It was definitely the injectors. Truck runs beautiful now. Go ahead and crank this thing up. Nice work truck model, but Thing runs beautiful. 2 bad injectors. Hopefully this helps you out. Feel free to like and subscribe. I'm gonna have more truck builds going on. We're gonna do this truck up, build it up into something nice, and then we're gonna do this crane truck up next. Nice 07 F350, no rust, 4-wheel drive, just a beautiful chassis. We're gonna have this build on the channel as well, so feel free to like and subscribe, and hopefully you'll be tuned in for the next one.